taking out the time to do this.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah, I know these times can get pretty intense.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to keep balance, you know.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I watched your documentary, and I tell you, the one thing that impressed me was your, on a personal level, was your, I guess you'd call it naked honesty. You know, it sort of reached me in such a way that, I don't know, felt more human, you know?
Well, I appreciate it. It certainly wasn't easy, and it's certainly not always easy to be there, but I did my best, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a documentary that wasn't full of a lot of little clever cliches, and it was just like down home human, you know? That was good.
I have my cliches too, but I try not to go there too
Keep
much.
them at a
Thank you.
minimum, huh? Okay, so how would you... first, I have to tell you, I've had my own experiences, but most of it, the time it's been with things like ayahuasca or DMT, you know, psychoactive kinds of openings. And it's been illuminating, to say the least, you know. But what I found fascinating about your experience is it came out of the blue from nowhere, right?
It did. It literally happened overnight.
So what happened?
The impetus, I don't know what brought it on, but I was finishing up a shoot for my first film I was working on, and then that's when the quote-unquote bell dropped.
Right.
And then that's when I started to see and hear and experience all these different energies and entities and a lot of wild stuff. And that first experience lasted about 8 or 9 hours, and then it's been with me ever since.
So what is it? Are you seeing like patterns in the fabric of space, or?
Well, that always seems to be up to debate. I mean, I see, at first it was different energetic forms, and I saw some wild geometry and some, I guess what I would call spirits and things that looked to me angelic and demonic come to my hotel room in San Francisco. And like I said, that lasted for hours. And at the end of the visit, they told me to expose what was happening. And that was the genesis for making Wake Up. So we literally documented my whole coming to grips and understanding what was happening in all the various places and experts I spoke to. I never in a million years would have done this without direction, but that's what Spirit had told me, and I just happened to be a documentary filmmaker, and that's what we did.
So you don't feel like you did anything in particular to bring this on? It came on?
No, that's...
Go ahead.
That's always a smart question to ask. I mean, if I had done 15 hits of acid or smashed my head up against a door or suffered some huge trauma, then I could understand that. But no, none of these things happened. It just happened overnight.
Well, you know, one of my thoughts on this is I do think we're entering into a time where reality itself, our perception of reality is going to be changing because of our consciousness. And things like this are going to start happening more and more and more to people. So it's really good to get this kind of information out there, because it could be unsettling if you weren't really sort of have something to go on.
Absolutely. And that's one thing I've already seen with touring Wake Up is we meet a lot of people that have had these experiences, and some people are very closeted about it. Some people have a lot of fear of what the community will think, and not to mention when these other channels open up, it can be some very intense stuff, you know, as you know.
Yep.
But I felt very lucky. I had an incredibly supportive and loving girlfriend who didn't understand everything, but she was there with me every step of the way. And I met a lot of great experts that really helped me understand and ground the experience and open up more.
So tell me something, Jonas. Like, since this has happened to you, are you finding that your old friends know you less better than some of your new friends?
Well, I had a whole spring cleaning on some of this too. You know, when I started to understand more about energy, or at least my belief on what it all means, I had to make a lot of lifestyle changes. And I'm a former musician playing in a rock band, so you know that had to change.
Yeah.
And just, a lot of the things that you kind of do as a younger person, out drinking or running around in bars and whatnot, I can't really hold that anymore. That's not to say I can have a drink, but just kind of that rebellious young lifestyle really had to get put in check.
Yep.
So yeah, I've met a lot of great people, a lot of new friends that are kind of understand this, what it is, and I definitely feel close bonds. And some of my old friends haven't really made the leap with me, but I'm not attached to that like I used to be. In the beginning, it was very important to me that my friends and family believed every word I said, and I certainly don't have that feeling about it anymore.
Yeah, I know what you mean about attachment. As my life has changed into more of a spiritual direction, a lot of these attachments, I didn't even have to make an effort to let them go. They just sort of dropped away from me. And that's been pretty nice, because I've never been the kind of person where I like to fight like an addiction or fight a compulsion. I like to live my life and live it fully. And the only way I've found to do that is by expanding my own awareness, my own consciousness, and growing into that myself. Like I used to be totally into Harley Davidsons, and I've spent like 8 years really missing having a Harley Davidson, and I just had the chance to ride one whenever I wanted to, and it's still sitting there, and I haven't even been riding it. And it made me realize that things drop away from your life with ease sometimes, and you don't even really realize why until you look back and realize that your consciousness has changed. And it always reminds me of a little kid out in the playground playing with his little toy, and you can't even take it away from him because he's so attached to it until he finds something else, and then he just sort of drops it, And that's how my life has been so far. I've dropped some of these playthings, and I've gone on to other things that fortunately have been healthier and expanded my awareness. So, something I wanted to ask you about. Another good thing about what you've gone through is it's experiential, but it's your experience. I just wrote a book on the social and neurological consequences of belief systems, and it's really important to grasp this, because we wake up on a planet every day where billions of people wake up and they're pretending like they know things they don't, and they call it their beliefs, and we get so wrapped up into other people's beliefs, and we sort of identify them in such a way that we forget that, wait a minute, I wasn't with Moses when he was talking to God in his burning bush. It doesn't mean anything to my life,
Right.
What is it about your experience that people could really understand and maybe even experientially through you envision some way? You know what I mean? Like, how can they see through your eyes and make this a valuable experience to really guide them on their own way?
Well, that's that's a tough one, but I like what you're saying about belief. And in Wake Up, we met a man by the name of Abdi Assadi. He's an acupuncturist and a healer, and he speaks a lot about belief, saying that belief is an incredibly dangerous thing. I didn't totally understand what he meant at the beginning, but as time went on, I totally got what that meant. And when these channels opened up and I became aware of these other spirits, or whatever you want to call all around us, my belief system prior to that crumbled. And with that belief, that old paradigm crumbles, it comes a lot of psychological things to sort out. For me, it was a lot of rage,
Right.
because I felt like I marched in line to something I never knew to be true in the first place. And sometimes these beliefs can be dictated by fear. What I try to do is just keep building and trying to understand through my own experiences, but also to be loose with it. If I have an experience when I get off the phone with you today that changes that, then I'll be open and brave enough to drop what I previously thought to be
Right.
true.
Right.
That's no day at the beach. That definitely takes a lot of practice, but I try to remain open. And there have been times on this 8-year path that things have come open and I've really had to reevaluate what I thought to be true. As far as any looking through your own eyes, I'm of the thought that everyone has this information in them, And you certainly know that from stuff you had discussed, that information's in us, and if we can all learn to quiet our minds and meditate in different practices, these truths will come out. The problem is when there's so much fear on the belief that you've been taught your whole life, it's hard to let that go due to consequences you also believe. That hasn't been my experience with the fear of death or heaven or hell, and that's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, it seems like when you learn to differentiate between the fear-based beliefs and the beliefs or hypotheses that we form in life to sort of guide us to the next step. And I remember when my beliefs started being dismantled, it left me feeling a little empty and almost without direction, because I wasn't used to looking at life as a mystery to be lived. I was so used to looking at life as a mystery to be solved. Like in a Western tradition, you ask questions, you get answers. And I forgot to live the mystery. But once I learned to embrace the mystery by letting the beliefs fade away, it opened up a whole nother realm of living for me,
I like that.
Yeah,
That's really good.